ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः. So as you all know, the topic is spiritual values for the IT age. Now, I think Sanjay was incidentally mentioning there are different approaches to this topic. The Vedantic approach based on the Upanishadic Vedic philosophy. Then this mindfulness approach, which is closely linked to the Buddhist tradition, the Mahayana tradition, and yoga. The reason why yoga is relevant for our age is the yoga goes beyond all definitions of religion, but it also contains the essence of religion. It is religion. At the same time, it goes far beyond religion, because even if you are a non-believer, an agnostic or an atheist, or if you want to come to modern time, if a walkist, so to speak, still you can understand yoga. Because yoga is all about human mind, human emotions, human feelings, and human realities, how we conduct ourselves, speak, interact, and define our own life and our own success, our own meaningfulness of life. So yoga is simple spiritual common sense. You can practice yoga. Remember, not yoga of standing on your head. Yoga actually helps you to stand on your feet, really speaking. In a profound spiritual sense, yoga is meant to help you to stand on your strong feet yourself. I mean, how to tap into the resources that we have within ourselves. And then a few words about information age. So I'm myself not an IT specialist or an expert, but we all understand today the gradual change, the imperceptible change that comes into our life and behavior, interaction, the way we speak and the way we look at our life under the influence of information technology or artificial intelligence. It is a great blessing. It's a great gift from God and nature, no doubt about it, but it can be a serious problem also, because there are certain problems of the mind which are the contributions of IT age. Not that IT is bad or anything, but IT reinforced and refined and enriched by spiritual values can be a wonderful tool in our hands, a very wonderful tool. Without spiritual values, it can be total disaster. Depression, anxiety, worries, and again, there is a particular state of human mind. And this is a very difficult state of human mind. Suppose you are very rich, you have wonderful cars, you have all that you consider valuable and useful in life. A good job, lot of reputation, and then you feel a kind of inner emptiness. It's a very serious problem. Everything you have. See, if you are poor, the solution is right in front of you. Big money, the problem solved. If you don't have a job, you get a job, problem solved. And if you want to be famous, you try to do something very outlandish also can make you famous in a very unpleasant sense. But still, one can become famous. But suppose you're famous, rich, everything wonderful, still you feel a total emptiness within. That is a more serious problem. And that's where yoga enters the picture. That's why the first sutra in yoga is Atha Yoga Anushasana. Literally speaking means now onwards, right now, we are going to instruct yoga. So what is yoga? Yoga is nothing but making use of all the resources we have at our disposal for the right purpose, for the right goal, and to avoid the temptation of using it for the wrong purpose, including IT, science and technology. They can be used for a very wonderful purpose. but they may also be used for the wrong purpose. So there is you can write a whole volume on Atha. In fact, there are 7 important commentaries. Those who are interested, we have almost 210 Yoga Sutra lectures in our YouTube. 67 of them delivered for the Stanford Students Association, sponsored by the University Students Association. 67 of them. 144 we did here in Vivekananda. How long ago? Before COVID. So, Atha means in fact, in a way, it sums up all that Sanjay said just now. The 3 boons he was talking about. It is something very interesting. These 3 boons define Atha. Atha means now onwards, when. So, there is an interesting story in Kathopanishad. Again, if you are interested, we have many, many lectures on the text itself, about say 70, 80 lectures on this Upanishad. In our own YouTube, we have done it. We have done retreats. It is simply, I'm just putting in a few words. A boy happened to meet a great spiritual person, a teacher. And the teacher asked him to ask for 3 boons. So suppose a boy or any of you or any IT professional is approached by some angel, somebody, some divine person, hypothetically speaking, you can ask for 3 boons. Well, the first boon he may ask for, maybe I should get a very wonderful job, preferably in NVIDIA, the highest. Okay, that's fine. So Nachiketa asked for this boon. I should have a very wonderful family, affluence, everything wonderful in this world. The sloka is there, Shanta Sankalpa Sumanayada Sya Vedamanyu Gautamama Abhimurtyo Turprasistama Abhivadet Prasida Edat Trayanam Prathamam Varamprani. The first boon I'm asking is, all my life in this world should be wonderful. And the divine person granted that boon. Next, he asked for something else. Well, I may live for 100 years in this world, then what? I may go somewhere, and I won't be able to carry with me my fountain pen and checkbook and bank balance. Everything gone. So there is something left behind. So I want to enjoy all these things in the afterlife. Heaven, that's also granted. The third boon that this little boy is asking is, that's very interesting. He's asking about, well, money, wealth, status, even heavenly pleasures will come to an end. Then what? Then what is a big question that is confronting modern IT age. You have artificial intelligence, you can create an alternate world, alternate life. You can live in your room, still live in a different world. A world not of reality, where you can fulfill all that you need mentally and you can go crazy. So there's equally inversion of values. I mean, X becomes Y becomes X, right becomes wrong, wrong becomes right. So this happens, a kind of, everything goes upside down, inside out. Total chaos. This is the possibility, a very dangerous possibility that IT is presenting before us. If we don't have a spiritual common sense with us, then all the tools of science and technology can become a source of trouble, source of problems. It can create wars. Again, it can create insanity. It can create drug addiction. Internet itself becomes a drug, a kind of addiction, much more stronger than any powerful drug or drink. So Patanjali says, Atha means, so you look for a solution. How to fill this vacuum? You are richer than Warren Buffett. You have the most wonderful job in the world. All the enjoyments at your disposal. Still you feel terribly miserable, lacking, wanting in something. And then Patanjali tells you, now onwards, you should look for yoga. And yoga is nothing but connecting our present life to something that is transcendental. One may ask this question, what is the transcendental? What's the practical benefit of connecting this world with some transcendental world? The idea is, when we have in our mind something higher than worldly, empirical things, what happens is, problems in this world will not shock us. That's one advantage. Suppose you are living in this world, some minor problems, but you know, oh, these things come and go. There is something much higher than all this that we should value for, that we should consider as supreme. Then this world and all its problems become manageable. So the lack of a transcendental purpose in human life is the main problem of these times. And IT can keep us trapped mentally, physically. Physically also, one may spend maybe days together in a room with his iPhone or computer, whenever coming out, but can go totally crazy without the assistance of anybody. It's an infection that comes to us without any external help. So Patanjali says, when you have already achieved everything in this world, then you should look for something transcendental, and that is the real meaning of Atha. Actually, modern IT age is a definition of this word Atha. The Sanskrit translation is then onwards, henceforward, now on, like that's the meaning. So now everything is fine. We have reached the peak of scientific technological developments. Now we should look for something higher and bigger, that is spirituality. Now what is the spirituality? That's again an important thing. Spirituality is a very, very difficult thing to define and very, very simple to practice. What is spirituality? Spirituality is just the definition of yoga, connecting ourselves with something transcendental, something higher, something supreme, other than empirical, worldly entities. That's all spirituality. So we can have all the wonderful things in this world, but remember, these things will not give us eternal, lasting peace and happiness. This realization is spirituality. That's what Buddha taught, mindfulness, you know. Mindfulness, but it is actually an English paraphrase of a well-known Buddhist discourse in Pali, Sati Upattana Sutta. It comes in Khuddaka Nikaya, one of the Pali canonical tradition. Now, mindfulness is an attempt to put yoga in a few words. Buddha gave two discourses. One is Mahasati Upattana Sutta, it's a bigger one, given to laity and monks together. Then another smaller, shorter one is called Sadhyupattana Sutta, Smriti Upasthana Sutra. This is Sanskrit equivalent. Smriti means memory, understanding, awareness. Upasthana means being established in that and still remain detached. Suppose you can look at everything in this world, including money, wealth, status, our own health, and work for it. Work for money, no problem. Work for health, no problem. But remember, money and health won't remain there for long. They are not lasting. They may live for 100 years, that's all. So keep this, the transient, impermanent nature of everything in this world, and they remain detached. That's all. Detachment, again, not indifference. Being aware of the fundamental impermanent nature. So you will not be obsessed by that. Money you may make, one may make money, work for promotion, work for reputation, wonderful. But you should not be obsessed, because when we become obsessed, we become trapped. We become self-imprisoned. And that brings misery. So in this context, there is one very important sutra that I want to discuss to begin with. And that sutra is very, in fact, so if you are interested, you can remember. It is recorded on YouTube. It is in Sadhana Pada, second chapter. Sutra is Parinama tapa samskara dukkaihi guna vritti vidodhacha dukkhameva sarvam vivekinaha. This is simple. Parinama tapa samskara dukkaihi guna vritti virodhacha dukkhameva sarvam vivekinaha. The point is this: those who are highly evolved, intellectually, mentally, spiritually evolved, even if you have evolution in common sense, then you will understand all these things are needed, that basically they are impermanent. For whom? Vivekinaha. They mean those who are evolved. So when you study philosophy, spirituality, mysticism, or even music, you find great musicians, great painters, great creative artists. They understand, not all of them, of course, many of them understand that all these things are all that you see around are transient. I should look for something more lasting. So he gets devoted to music, mysticism, whatever it is. So this transformative change is called parinama dukkha. Dukkha doesn't mean misery or grief. Dukkha in Buddhism means something incomplete. That's the real meaning of dukkha. It is technically called, those who have any doubt on this, you are most welcome to discuss during interaction. When we live in this world, at the same time, keep this awareness in our mind that all these things are important, but they are not permanent. Simple common sense. This understanding is natural for vivekinaha, means those who are evolved, those who are endowed with wisdom. So this is the meaning. Now the question arises, what change does it bring to you? The parinama means change. So again I should go back to the story. Nachiketa is the character in Kathopanishad. When he got everything that he wanted, then he asked for a third boon. Well, what is the meaning of human existence? What is the meaning of death? What's the meaning of life? And what happens to us when we are no more in this world? Yayam priti bijigitsa manushi asti tige nayam asti dijayage edad vidya manushishastoyaham varana mesha varastatiya. I mean, don't worry about this quotation, you can refer to it in the Kathopanishad comes. The simple question put before the great teacher is, some people say, well, death is a full stop, the end of the journey. And some people say it's only a coma. It is just a change of flight, a kind of layover, short layover. You come back again, you take another flight, you come back again to this world. So what is the truth behind? In answer to this, Yama gives a long discourse on the meaning of human existence, the meaning of human reality. That's a theme of Kathopanishad. The point is, there is within us something that doesn't die. And that's the most supreme, most valuable thing in our personality. Body, of course, all that is connected with the body-mind complex, are impermanent. But there is something permanent behind all this. And that in Vedanta is called Atman. So in Buddhism we call the Buddhahood, the enlightened spirit, Tathatum and all you call it. Tathagata is the state of nirvana. So in all tradition we have got this. In all with Christianity, what you call Christian experience defined by St. Augustine. In the city of God you find, and those who are interested in Christian theology. In all tradition you can find this idea of realizing the fundamental impermanence or incompleteness of all worldly things and the need for something higher and transcendental. It is a human need, it is a psychological need. So when we become aware of this higher purpose, higher value, it has got one very important practical utility. You can live in this world without any problem. You don't ever imagine that we can have a continuous succession of success, happiness, enjoyment. Impossible. No one can ever think of continuous success unbroken, continuous experience of happiness is only a myth, a utopia. Then what is the reality? There is no continuous, unbroken succession of unhappiness either. Happiness and unhappiness, good and bad, joy and misery, they come and go, they interchange. So once we understand this, we will deal with the problem, but we won't be shocked. So this understanding is the meaning of the word viveka here, dukkha here. Those who are evolved, they understand that there is something beyond this body-mind complex. And to realize that is the meaning of human success in life. And then once we realize this, there is one very, very tangible benefit. You can imagine, I can give an example, but need not go to spiritual realm. Suppose you are a great painter, let's say, and you are dedicated to this painting art. Now suppose you have a health problem, your doctor tells you you have a serious health problem, it won't shock you because you realize you solved the problem, tried to get treatment, but you have something else. I want to paint something really valuable. Suppose you are a creative artist, a novelist, you are a scientist for that matter, you are a physicist, not a spiritual science. Even if you are a physicist and you get this information, this news that you have a serious health problem. Now what happens is, you will deal with the problem, but you feel that my scientific research is something that gives me a kind of transcendental joy and contentment. So that will help you from the terrible shock. Your problem will be there, you have to solve the problem, you have to go for treatment, but it will be less of a problem. This is true in mysticism or in any area, but in spirituality, it is very, very solid, it is very visible. When we realize that there is something beyond and behind this body-mind complex, that doesn't change. And when we realize this, that's a real meaning of viveka in this context, that in this Patanjali Yoga Sutra. And once we realize this, we become spiritually transformed. And that transformation will help us to deal with everyday problems with a great maturity, great poise. This is the real meaning of it's called Parinama Dukkha in Patanjali Yoga Sutra. I can give an example, maybe historically speaking, the most vivid graphic example for the message behind the sutra is Buddha's life. It is so well known, that's why I'm quoting. There are many, many examples in the life of mystics, Indian sages, Sufis, you find. Buddha was living in a palace. And then one day he realized that death, sickness and old age are real problems in life. Now that made him think. And what happened was, so there is dukkha in life. Now remember, Buddha was not crying and weeping when he left his palace in search of enlightenment. Buddha was endowed with a strong urge to understand the transcendental, the meaning of human existence. Because he saw in front of him a dead body being taken to the cremation ground. He saw an old man with a miserable look, and also he saw a sick man. So suddenly, for the first time in his life, he realized, he was 28 years old, 24 according to some historians. Lalita Vistara says 24. So he suddenly realized, well, there are things like this, because he was kept practically confined to his palace without any exposure to the unfortunate realities of life. When he was born, an astrologer predicted that he will be an emperor of wandering mendicants, or he become an all-conquering emperor. And his parents wanted him to be the latter, not the former. So what happened was, when Buddha realized that there is misery or incompleteness in this world, He wanted to find an answer for that. So he left his palace and walked up to Bodh Gaya, 1200 miles. Now during this walking, wandering, what was happening in his mind? He was looking for an answer for the meaning of human existence. Why should people fall sick? Why should, as I mentioned earlier in my earlier talk, why should a man or a woman, an IT professional in modern times, the richest man in the world, the most powerful man, why should he feel this nagging incompleteness, misery, something wanting in his mind? Why should he feel? Why can't we, everything is achieved? Remember, and there is one important aspect in this sutra. Only if you are spiritually, intellectually evolved, then only you will be able to feel incomplete, wanting for something higher when you have all the money with you. A very average person who defines his life in terms of physical enjoyments is not very different from a healthy, intelligent animal. But the point is, there are those who have all this at his disposal, but he also realizes these things are, after all, coming and going. So he wants something higher. The higher desire for something noble, something transcendental, that is very much needed for this age. That is the real point I am trying to make. A desire for something higher than all that IT can bring us, money, wealth, everything. If that can also be accommodated into our life plan, then IT can become a great blessing. So for that, we need to realize the incompleteness, the transient nature of all the worldly enjoyments. At the same time, you need them all. People need money, people need all these things. But they should also realize these things will not bring lasting peace. So Buddha walked all these 1200 miles towards Bodh Gaya. He was thinking, all these things are there. He was living in a palace, but then one day all these will disappear. So he realized this supreme truth. And now the question arises, how to begin our spiritual journey? So according to Yoga Sutra, Yoga Sutra gives a vivid picture of the human mental system. The analysis is very interesting. Patanjali, the author of Yoga Sutras, tells you that there are three factors that you keep in mind when we try to understand our mind. One, our experiences, our internal experiences, happiness, unhappiness, anger, joy, and so on. Then external physical experiences, and then our own response to those experiences. These are three important categories in Yoga Sutra. One is bhoga, means our experiences, and how we react to our own experiences. And these experiences are creating certain responses in our system. And Patanjali tells you there are three ways in which we respond to our mind, our own experiences. Whether an experience coming from somebody from outside or an experience that is strongly felt within. One is extreme liking, obsessive attachment. Again, obsessive indifference or detachment, raga and dvesha. The third category is mixture of this, abhinivesha, moving away from it. Now, in modern times, you can find this problem manifesting in so many different ways. One is extreme obsessive liking for certain things. Even we know it's a problem, well, still we cannot get out of it. Well, the most vivid example in the context of a discussion IT is internet addiction, social media addiction. Now, you may read any book. In fact, most of the addicts know that's a problem. Addiction is a problem, but they cannot get out of it. It is a kind of self-imprisonment, feeling trapped within. You want to get out of it? You cannot. So that's the most difficult problem in modern times. One is this obsessive liking called raga. Frequently, in translations, there is a problem. Any of these ancient phrases will face problems when you try to translate them to modern English. See, raga is not just liking for something. Raga is much more. It's a trap. You don't see the chains that bind you. You feel it. You are maybe bound by a golden chain. You don't enjoy that kind of imprisonment. Somebody beating you with a golden stick. That the pain is as terrible as being beaten by an iron stick. Same thing. So golden stick doesn't make a difference. So raga is some kind of obsessive attachment to certain things. So we want to get out of it. We cannot, we feel helpless within. This is raga. The opposite is dvesha. We feel a kind of abhorrence, dislike, hatred, repulsion to certain things, individuals, events. You know that it's totally irrational, there's no justification. Still you cannot get out of this insane hatred, insane dislike for certain things. This is all about addiction, So addiction is nothing but a combination of these two. If most of the addicts are aware it's a problem, they're also aware they cannot get out of it. It's something very deep and very painful. When you are aware there's a problem, and you're aware you have to get out of it, you're also aware that you cannot get out of it. That makes the misery all the more difficult to bear. That is raga. The opposite is dvesha. Extreme dislike. Of course, that may be different. Maybe you can develop an extreme dislike. That's also part of internet addiction. Addiction can be negative and positive. The third one is abhinivesha. Raga, dvesha, and abhinivesha. Sometimes they call kleshas, Avidya, asmit, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha, klesha. You find in Yoga Sutra. I'm not going to discuss the entire sutra. There's no need for that. You can listen to our lectures. And 244 lectures you find in our internet dealing with the entire Yoga Sutra with 7 commentaries in Sanskrit bhashyas. It's for you to make use of if you want. So the point is, mind gets imprisoned. Now Patanjali gives a very wonderful method to get out of this. The first step is very interesting. Do something sensible. This is very interesting. Patanjali, you can see the profound psychology behind this. Patanjali doesn't ask you to believe in something. He tells you do something sensible physically. And he gives the name Kriya Yoga. That sutra is the first sutra in the Sadhana Pada. Tapaswadhyaya Ishwar Pradhanani Kriya Yoga. There are many components in this, but only one aspect I am going to take in this context. It means doing something sensible, being engaged in something useful, something higher, something noble. Do something wonderful. One may be facing a serious problem. Mentally disturbed, manic, depressive, manic, bipolar. You have tremendous energy and then you become depressed. Well, when you have manic energy, make use of that energy for a higher purpose. So somehow, actually, I have discussed this matter on many occasions with professional psychiatrists in this country, and they agree. Of course, they cannot agree when they are treating a patient as part of the Kaiser system, because they will lose their job, but they do make use of these wonderful ideas in their interpersonal conversations. So first of all, doing something sensible. Patanjali says it's called Kriya Yoga. Kriya Yoga is a very long sutra. Tapa Swadhyayaha Ishara Pridhanani Kriya Yoga. Austerity, feeding the mind with good spiritual food, and then again engaging in something sensible, Kriya Yoga. So every action, every kind of physical action is a way to come out of this prison. this mental trap. That's Patanjali. It's the first step. It's a kindergarten where you learn the alphabets. So he says, do something sensible. If you cannot read a book, let's say Sermon on the Mount or Bhagavad Gita, you read at least Henry Thoreau's Walden. Because it comes not very close, but still somewhat close to reading Sermon on the Mount. It belongs to the same broad category. Something that is not of this world. Something that contains a little bit of higher wisdom, transcendental wisdom. Thoreau also speaks about civil disobedience, the invasion of modern technology, railroads, all those things. You can read a book. So it comes somewhere close to coming out of this prison. So do something sensible, physical activity. And Patanjali, he introduces a very wonderful concept in this sutra. What he says is, if you do something sensible, physically, cleaning the road, the people are walking. If possible, you can clean a church or a temple, still more better, or doing something sensible, helping a blind man to cross the street. If there is a news, social media, there is a tsunami or the earthquake in Indonesia, you are a rich man, you can donate $1,000. These are different ways of doing something sensible, something which contains a little bit of unselfishness, which contains a little bit of humanism, humanistic impulse that goes beyond your own immediate selfish, self-oriented enjoyment. Do something sensible, even helping a homeless man. So any kind, or speaking some good words to somebody, or even thinking some good thoughts. All these are different ways of doing something sensible. So Patanjali gives a very big, long category, Kriya Yoga. So he includes now remember, if you read an overall translation, you will understand. So there are bhashyas. In Patanjali's Yoga Sutra has got so many commentaries. You have got, Yoga Sutra, Tattva Vaisharadhi is there, then Vijnana Bhikshu, Bhoja, Vyasa Bhashya, Shankaracharya's Vivarana, all there are many Sanskrit commentaries which fortunately the yoga studios won't let you know anything about because they want you to stand on your head, not eventually stand on your feet. So because the physical yoga is only the most insignificant, the least part, the smallest part of Patanjali's scheme. Patanjali has written 195 sutras, 195, and gives only one sutra for yoga. That is, what is it? Sthira Sukhamasana. Physical yoga is Sthira Sukhamasana. Means you should be able to sit quiet. With Sthirya means steadiness continuously, and Sukha means without effort. Only one sutra for yoga, studio yoga. But the other yoga is meant for helping us to stand on our feet and not on our head. So the point is, so Patanjali says, our beginning of spiritual journey is to decide to take a decision to do something sensible. And that action may be an action of charity, a good thought. Even if you cannot do something, if you have a strong desire to do something, mentally it's a relieving effect on the mind. There's a very important difference between physical action and mental action. Suppose you don't have enough money. If only I had enough money, I would have donated $1 million to people suffering from tsunami in Indonesia somewhere. The noble thought will have a healing effect on the mind. You are not given any money, you cannot. So thought also produces a healing effect. How do we realize that this is spiritual significance? You feel a kind of inner contentment when you have a noble thoughts. Just like when you feel a kind of healing effect within when you do something sensible, physically. And also when you speak something that creates a good impression, that helps somebody. Kindness, compassion, nobility, broad-mindedness. All this will have a healing effect on our mind also, not only on another person's mind. So that's the first. After this, Patanjali says we should practice certain spiritual disciplines, mental disciplines, and we'll discuss this tomorrow. You can ask questions. Now the field is yours. Anything related to this or unrelated to this, you are most welcome. Yeah.
My question is how to approach the common experience of being exhausted by daily work in a system that requires many compromises and that is not necessarily the easiest path to freedom. And many people find themselves in industries, including Silicon Valley, where compromises are made just because of the nature of the work that they find themselves in. Then after work, with the best of intentions, there's little energy left for the enrichment that spirituality would provide, that then becomes sort of this entrenched, self-defeating cycle that intends to close the gap, but doesn't really have the ability to do it. Many times you've talked about infusing the daily work with a spiritual consciousness, but in practice, many people have difficulty in the exigencies of the modern experience.
Yeah. Now here, the idea of Vedanta, the teaching of Vedanta comes to our rescue. So when we have to work, let's say 15 hours a day, and the work involves many acts of compromise with some of the ideas that we cherish, it creates strong internal conflicts. You believe in something or want to believe in something and practice something, and also there's the problem that you are not actually able to do that, and you end up making compromises with what you yourself consider as the most wonderful idea. That's so. So there, yoga and Vedanta are interlinked. According to Patanjali and the commentators, yoga is Vedanta begins where yoga ends. Yoga is all about dealing with the problems of our mind, emotional conflicts, mental conflicts, and the conflict that you just referred to right now. And Vedanta tells you that all these things are transient. The idea of transience of this world originally comes from Vedanta. Jagat Mithyatvam is a different concept. So the point is, we should first of all recognize the fact that the world can never be perfect. And perfection, mathematical perfection is impossible in life. See, 2 plus 2 is 4 in mathematics, not in life. The logical mathematics doesn't apply in life. There is the uncompromising logic. For example, you do something, you make an experiment in laboratory, you can predict what results to expect. There's no doubt about it. In all areas, but in life it doesn't happen that way. You help a person, he becomes your worst enemy. You don't do anything for a person, he's your best friend. This is a reality in human existence. So there is no reciprocal relationship, connection is non-existent in real life, but it is there in mathematics, in physics, everywhere. So first of all, you should remember, this world as such can never be perfect or correct, mathematically, logically perceptible, impossible. Unpredictability and imperfection is ingrained and inherent in this world and also in the field of duties and responsibilities, including IT responsibilities. So very often you find, I can give an example, I can go from Mahabharata. Mahabharata is a very interesting subject. In fact, I'm supposed to go for an international conference on Indian epics soon in February. You see, maybe I cannot give a better answer than referring to Mahabharata. More than 1 lakh verses. In Mahabharata, there are many characters. Bhishma, Drona, many villains and also many wonderful human beings also. So what's the way of practicing dharma? A big discussion happens. Yudhishthira is an interesting character. Now, Yudhishthira believed that dharma is an axiom, a rigid principle, an absolute principle that can be practiced. It cannot be practiced because he held fast to certain higher principles. He had to witness the most terrible things in his life. His inaction, his imbecility, his lack of strength and purpose caused the most miserable things in Mahabharata. You know, in Dharmaputra, Yudhishthira is the embodiment of dharma, but there was no misery that this man did not indirectly be responsible for. Can you imagine that? Now, I give the example of Neville Chamberlain coming closer to Europe. Neville Chamberlain was British Prime Minister during Second World War. This man went to Munich Pact, Munich. Hitler, he entered a treaty with Hitler. It's a great treaty. He thought he can appease Hitler. He entered a treaty with Hitler. The result was within 3 months he attacked Poland and Czechoslovakia. That was the beginning of Second World War. Suppose, and Neville Chamberlain was Yudhishthira. Very wonderful man. He was a pacifist. He loved peace. What happened was, in life and also in the concept of dharma, there cannot be mathematical perfection. Krishna, on the other hand, he may play some tricks. If Krishna had not played these tricks, Mahabharata would have become a terrible catastrophe. Suppose you can imagine maybe Chamberlain could have done something to do away with Hitler in 1938-39. Maybe 80 million people would not have been killed. Can you imagine that? And he said, we have achieved peace in our generation after the pact was signed. So, in life and also in the concept of dharma, there cannot be mathematical perfection. Impossible. So you have to remember, when you are living in this world, you can never be 100% correct. Impossible. If you try to be that, you will end up being 100% wrong. Your fate will be that of Prince Minskin in Dostoevsky's The Idiot. Dostoevsky wanted to create a complete, perfect, good man like Christ, and ended up creating an imbecile, insane person. So remember this is a fact, that in life, you see, for example, you are writing an email, you are doing a work which involves some compromise with what you may call truth. But then you are not doing it consciously to create problems in this world. So long as you are not doing it consciously, deliberately to create problems in the world, you are not actually compromising with that. So your action is not only what is happening right now at the moment, it also includes consequences that come after your action. If you take the entire spectrum of consequences, you can blame Neville Chamberlain caused Second World War. But you cannot blame him for that. Similarly, in our ordinary human life, we may have to do many things, but so long as we are not consciously, deliberately becoming cause of problems in this world, we are not compromising. It's a fact. I hope, I don't know if it's a very broad question, so I also answer from a broad perspective. There's no other way, because there is no real answer to this, direct answer. Yes, and a binary answer, it's not possible. Please, it's a very interesting discussion, worth continuing. Just, I'll come to you. You have something more? Yeah, just we'll continue. We have enough time.
Just quickly, I don't want to be let off the hook. In other words, oh, well, I don't intend any harm, but I'm in a harmful system. Oh, I'm doing my best, but I'm exhausted and can't do more. I don't want to be let off the hook. I understand that aiming at perfection can be self-defeating and can be part of the problem, but I actually want to know, what do I do when I feel like I've hit the limits and they really genuinely aren't good enough? Do I have to leave the system that is destroying my soul, or do I stay alone with my
Yeah.
my fellows and sisters and brothers who were similarly stuck,
Yeah.
hijacked in life.
Yeah. No, you are right, actually. Einstein also faced the same internal conflict after seeing what happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But personally, I cannot say that Einstein was wrong in any way because he did not plan this. So what we do today may be a cause of problems for humanity, maybe after several years. But we are not deliberately planning and scheming to do something wrong. So long as we are not doing it, it doesn't hurt us spiritually. It doesn't hurt us spiritually. Dynamite was not invented for terrorists to kill people, but it had its own creative purpose. Building a bridge or maybe a tunnel. These things are used, but then all scientific inventions have good and bad purposes. But we cannot say the great inventors, scientists were all wrong. Because of them, the world suffered so much. We cannot put the entire blame for thousands of anti-ballistic missiles which can carry nuclear warheads. We cannot put the entire blame on Einstein. Poor man, he didn't dream of these things happening. Or you have to go all the way to the invention of the wheel, James Watt, the steam. It began there even before that. So in a way, science and technology can be properly used for the good of humanity, but it may also be used for destruction of humanity. So the only way to do that is to develop the spiritual common sense, which at least will prevent us from deliberately, consciously doing something wrong with the sole purpose of doing something wrong. Deliberately, consciously doing something wrong with the sole purpose of doing something wrong, that can be prevented if you develop this spiritual common sense. We can never create a world in which there is no problem at all. That is only a myth. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Maharaj. So my question was, you mentioned towards the start of the talk about vairagya, the sense of detachment, and also how that should not lead to passivity or inactivity. Right? In fact, we should be rigorously active in the world, at the same time with a sense of detachment. My question is, how can we differentiate between vairagya and laziness? Because I've experienced this sometimes myself also. Your mind kind of plays tricks, right? It says that you're practicing vairagya, whereas you're just being lazy.
There's a very simple, open secret. When we really practice vairagya, a sense of renunciation, we feel within our mind a kind of serenity and peace and happiness, a self-fulfillment. Laziness doesn't create that. Laziness doesn't create a sense of contentment. And in fact, that's the easiest way to test whether our actions are really in the right direction or not. Very often we speak, we do things, we think thoughts. Am I in the right direction? Am I doing the right thing? A simple way to test is when we do something and we feel, oh yeah, I have done something which I should have done. That produces a most inexplicable inner joy and contentment, as kind of self-enrichment. It's very important. And that is because, according to Yoga Sutra, many of the karmic blocks are being dismantled. Conflicts are getting resolved. See, when we have conflicts in our mind, we feel tension. This conflict is due to the karmic conflict, karmic entanglements. We have done something, a lot of samskaras in our mind. We do something which is against the samskaras. So this conflict comes. The conflict between what we want to do and what we end up doing. This conflict. We want to do certain good things, mind will not permit us. Now, when we do really something good, like vairagya, when you're practicing vairagya, renunciation, other people will be totally dissatisfied. When you do wonderful things, don't think the whole world will clap their hands. No, the other way around. In fact, one proof of that you have done the right thing is that many people criticize you. It means you should congratulate you have done the right thing. There are many situations which belong to this category. So the point is, but when we do something, and after doing that, not action alone, speaking, thinking, and after that we feel a kind of inner peace and happiness. That means we have done the right thing. In course of time, good people will invariably recognize your action. So there is a proof that comes from within ourselves. You have done the right thing. Your own mind will tell you, very, very good, you have done. Otherwise, you may have done certain things with the opposite picture. You may have done certain things, other people congratulate, but you are not very happy. That means the action is wrong. I think it's clear. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah.
Thank you for the nice exposition of the old and traditional values for the modern life. My question goes back to the third question of Nachiketa to Yama, like the meaning of life and what happens afterwards. Some discussions about spirituality and Vedanta sometimes tell us that everything is supposed to be happening in a certain way, like depending upon our prior karma or prarabdha. And the only the discussion between the free will and destiny, the only free will we have is to turn our mind inward towards the higher value. So, but I also brought out only in some people, like 8 billion people on this universe, and only some will have an inclination to put their mind on this higher value. So I want your some input discussion on that. The second question is like, once somebody's mind is on those higher values, then you come up with all these different paths. Like one is the jnana and the knowledge path, and the other one is devotional bhakti. Third one you brought out the Kriya yoga. So, like, is it based on the individual's temperament? You choose a certain pathway, or some people say jnana is the final pathway, like all the tributaries of the river, the bhakti and the Kriya finally ending the jnana, where you know that you are the Brahman, or the supreme nature is inside you. So I just wanted to get input and the practical tips to somebody navigating this path.
Yeah, it is true that different paths are meant for people with different temperaments. Now, why do people differ in their temperaments? The question is, for Yoga Sutra, I will tell you due to samskaras. And that will make you think of samskaras coming from not only this life and previous life cycles. That's also an important thing, certain tendencies and impressions. And then, according to Patanjali Yoga Sutra, it's being accepted by many, we very often when we do things which apparently are contradictory or are in conflict with the previous samskaras, that's because we are trying to do things for which we are not yet ready. That creates conflict. The karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga, etc. So we cannot choose frequently. We cannot choose what we need. Very often we end up practicing what we are actually fit for practicing. So we cannot buy. We can buy orange and apples, whatever you want, but we cannot choose our path the way we can buy things in a market. So that creates difficulty in understanding. We are all the same. So that's why Patanjali and all the Vedantins, Buddhists, all of them will take you back to your previous lives, samskaras and all that. So that's one important explanation. What is the last question? You said Kriya Yoga. Yes. Kriya Yoga is a very interesting concept that Patanjali originated. You know, Kriya Yoga, as I mentioned, is only one small fragment of the long sutra, which includes tapa, swadhyaya, etc. So he says, and again, not Patanjali, but Vijnana Bhikshu and other commentators will tell you that Kriya Yoga includes Bhakti Yoga and Karma Yoga. And some of the commentators give importance to Karma Yoga because Vijnana Bhikshu was a Buddhist. So he says Bhakti Yoga is not very much in agreement with Buddhist theology, Buddhist philosophy. So any person who do something good, consciously or unconsciously, eventually he will be a good person. Even you may be doing things unconsciously. You may not want to do good things. But if you are continuously doing something good, that will have an effect on your mental system. Because every action refines, it has some impact on the emotional system. Every action will have some effect, direct impact on the emotional system. Action produces vrittis, vasanas and samskaras. So good actions will invariably produce sattvic vrittis, good samskaras, good tendencies, even if you are doing it unconsciously. If you do consciously, it will be more rapid. Even otherwise, if you continuously keep doing good things, you cannot help being a good person. That's a very interesting theory. That's why frequently, suppose we can introduce students, young students studying in schools, in primary schools, to good actions, good thoughts. That's the best way to produce good citizens, good human beings. They need not be taught about God and all that. That's very problematic in modern times. What kind of God are you talking about? God is not a very popular name in modern times. Sometimes very unpopular. People do terrible things for God and on behalf of God. So the Patanjali doesn't bother much about God. That's why I introduced this subject. It doesn't mean he doesn't reject it. It goes beyond religion, the conventional definitions of religion. It is so secular in the sense not anti-religious, but trans-religious, going beyond the definitions of religion. You just do good things. Now I tell you something, the only religious philosophy that accepts these views are Advaita. Shankaracharya also tell you need not go to a temple. Do karma yoga, karma nishthayaha, chitta suddhi dvarena pushartha hedutvam na swatantriyana, jnana nishtha tu swatantriyana pushartha hedu anyan apeksha. Shankaracharya in Bhashya. If you keep doing good things, noble deeds, you have freedom. Whether you should do something good or bad physically, you have more freedom. Mentally, you don't have freedom. What thought comes to your mind, not always within your control. What books you can read also, you cannot decide. You go to a library, then your mind will drive you, force you to read something which you don't want to read. It happen. But physically, what road you are going to take while driving back to Reading is entirely your freedom, your choice. So at the physical level, we have total freedom, more or less. So what he says is, Shankaracharya says, if you just keep doing good things, your mind it has to become pure, and then you become a spiritual person, an enlightened person. Patanjali also says the same thing. It goes beyond religion. See, you don't have to believe in a God or go to a church or a temple. You just live a good life, be a good human being, do good things. Even if you can't do good things, have a desire to do good things. That also will have a positive effect on the mind. That's the genius behind this Kriya Yoga Sutra. It's a magnificent sutra. Buddha also takes many of these ideas in his teachings. Buddha also. In the Samyak Vyayama, Samyak Ajiva, Samyak Kamma. 3 of the eightfold disciplines of Buddha, the path to nirvana, taken from this Patanjali's idea. Patanjali came much early, much before Buddha.
Is that what we talk about inner purification of chitta?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Swamiji?
Yeah.
In this present situation, the question is willpower and addiction. Pharmaceutical companies produce their drugs.
Yeah.
Some of them are good, some of them are addictive.
Yeah.
Silicon Valley produces its technology, some of it's good, and then it's like a narco
Yeah.
technology. It's addictive.
Yeah.
So what is the Vedantic point of view about human willpower?
Human willpower.
Willpower.
Yeah, the only way out is to spread these higher ideas among the great management executives of pharmaceutical companies, technocrats, because we should not condemn science and technology or pharmaceutical science. They do have their importance. They are doing great work. Many of the inventions, the distribution system of the medicines have helped humanity in a big way. We have eradicated many terrible forms of diseases and illnesses. They have made tremendous progress. Science and technology, IT is a great blessing. Today you go to your home, if you want to read Bible, you can become a scholar, biblical scholar by IT, without IT. You could not have done it 100 years ago. So IT is a great blessing, is a great boom, is a great gift from God if you believe in God, or from nature if you don't believe. The point is how to make proper use of all this and to avoid improper use of all this. There comes in the significance, relevance of yoga and Vedanta. So the only way is to spread these ideas. Many of them do believe in many of these things. They're trying to do. Some of them don't. Some of them, as I mentioned, they get imprisoned within the system. Cannot get out of it. They do want to get out of it, but they cannot. Addiction. But I believe if we can spread these spiritual ideas, it will be very often. The great danger in modern times, frequently, when these ideas spread through internet and IT, very often they are reduced to dry concepts without any link to the great teachers from whom all these teachings came. For example, you teach mindfulness, it is being taught in many hospitals, medical systems, but don't mention Buddha. What's the use of it? You teach Sermon on the Mount, don't mention Christ. Leave him alone. So everyone has to teach us his own product. That is a treason, that's a betrayal. It's a blasphemy, it is sacrilege. Because you cannot teach Einstein, don't mention Einstein. No, you can teach all this. So that's wrong. You don't teach engineering without mentioning the great engineering inventors and discoverers. You can't do that. So, but spirituality, you should take away from the original teachers and make yours. The result is people don't believe in it. They cannot believe. No one can really understand the meaning of Sermon on the Mount without presenting the name of Jesus Christ, who was himself in many ways an embodiment of, a definition of all these great teachings, humility, all these great things. But you don't mention that. So the man, very looking haughty, terrible looking person is teaching my Sermon on the Mount. People won't be convinced. But anyone can teach Sermon on the Mount keeping Jesus Christ in front. You should teach mindfulness keeping Buddha in front. Buddha himself was a representative of all that. That's a great problem, and because anyone can start a 20 minutes program all about Aristotle in 20 minutes. So no one reads Aristotle, go to library. It's available 20 minutes, Somebody who has never read Aristotle, even one full book, you get enough money. If you make it sufficiently superficial, sufficiently non-authentic, sufficiently populist, you are successful. That's the negative side of information technology and internet, social media. On the other hand, social media can also introduce the classical teachings, the entirety. You can make use of it. You can teach Plato and Aristotle, Kant, or anyone you can teach. In Bible, the Dhammapada you can teach, Vedanta you can teach, Yoga Sutra you can teach. It is a wonderful tool. Frequently, as I mentioned, it becomes unnecessarily, unfortunately, becomes a tool in the hands of totally non-authentic, absolutely unqualified, superficial teachers who just want viewers. So they make them sufficiently non-authentic, sufficiently superficial, betraying the original spirit. Don't mind my words, because it is so much of a fact and a disturbing fact. Thank you for a very relevant question, Thank you.
This is the first time I've heard of the term spiritual common sense.
Yeah.
There is a complete erosion in general of common sense. My question for you is, in your concept, what is spiritual common sense? Is that, again, something like prarabdha? You have enough good vasanas and some sankaras or samskaras to have common sense.
Yeah.
Can we teach that common sense to then expand to all areas of life, including IT? Turn it off if it is bothering you.
Yeah, correct.
Why go on a tirade that IT is bad?
Yeah.
Use it properly. But how do you teach people that you have control? Patanjali is trying to say you have control even over your mind, not just your actions, right?
Yeah.
But how do you teach people, especially adults, to do that?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. Spiritual common sense can be simply defined as understanding the fact that everything in this empirical world, the objects of enjoyment, sensory enjoyments, are impermanent, not everlasting, transient. That's one thing. Along with that, the need to, understanding the need that we should look for something transcendental, something that is permanent, something that is not transient, something eternal. This the beginning. And then what happens? In life, it depends upon where we stand. So I can explain to you the opposite of spiritual common sense. That will make you understand what it really means. The opposite of spiritual common sense is to think money is everything. And money can bring us eternal happiness. Nothing more is required. Our health, this will be there. Our health is also lasting, everlasting. All this, there is nothing beyond whatever we experience at the empirical level that is worthwhile. All these things are, they all constitute the one supreme goal of human existence, nothing beyond. This is the opposite of spiritual common sense. So now, a person with spiritual common sense, I will try to explain. It's a concept is abstract. He will work in this world. He can become the most successful executive, the richest man, very powerful, influential person. But along with that, he also understands, well, all those things, all these achievements are not going to last for long. They cannot bring me eternal happiness, lasting happiness. Can only give me temporary happiness. And happiness is only temporary absence of unhappiness. Happiness and unhappiness come and go, joy and misery. So I should remember this. Then you know what happens? Then you start looking for something beyond, something that doesn't belong to happiness and unhappiness equation. If mind is lifted above these two, what we call dvandvas in Sanskrit, equation. And then you are able to look at both happiness and unhappiness, the same equanimity of mind. This is the essence of spiritual common sense. Something that we can only experience, but we can always explain, but we cannot get a one-word definition. That's an important thing. We can always explain how a man, when endowed with spiritual common sense, will act and live in this world. He may be the most active person in the world, but still he'll be always be aware of the fact all those things, results of actions, will not last for long. They will come and go. This inner awareness produces a kind of maturity, kind of wisdom, higher wisdom. And that will help you to live in this world with a lot of inner contentment. Contentment, not necessarily happiness, contentment. That is spiritual common sense. It can be practiced, it can be developed through yoga, Vedanta, any purpose. You can sometimes find the spiritual comments among people who have not studied any of these things also you can find. Simple. The problem is this, that's very important. We may be aware of this, but we may forget this when we face a problem. That's the main challenge. We may write books on this subject, we may be fully informed about this, but we won't be able to make use of this tool when we confront a problem in life. And to be able to remember this when we confront a problem in life is spiritual common sense. To be very frank with you, it is based on the second important proposition of Advaita Vedanta, Jagat Mithyatvam. Mithya, it is not a Vedanta class. Mithya has got 5 definitions in Panchapadika, Vivarana, and then Chitsukhi and Anandabodha's Nyaya Deepavali. 5 definitions altogether. It is based on Mithya means something that's there, but don't think it will be there all the time. That is Mithya. It is a simple English phrase that I try to popularize in my lectures based on the second preposition of Advaita Vedanta, Shankaracharya's axiom called Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. If I say Jagat Mithya, people will think I'm an old Vedantin, this is of no use for our times. So I use this English phraseology, that's all. What do you say, Bobby? Eh? Can you speak a few concluding remarks before we end the class session? Yeah. Richard has a question. Come on. Yeah. Yeah, please. Yeah.
In any case, it seems you said you touched on one very important thing.
Yeah, just louder.
Okay.
Yeah.
You touched on something very interesting. You know, we're here talking about how not to get caught up in certain things, how not to get caught up in certain systems that work and problems with this, that, or the other thing, or getting caught up in internet addictions and so on. And you mentioned this idea that there's this point of control where we have this experience, and then there is our reaction to the experience.
Yeah.
And that strikes me as a sort of this golden opportunity. And when we don't see that those two things are separate, the experience and our reaction to it, then we get lost very quickly. Then we lose our common sense.
Yeah.
Right? So the more time and the more awareness we have about our reaction to things is a big help in our daily lives, especially now when we're barraged with these experiences. So do you have some very practical ideas on how to lengthen that time or remain more aware in the period between the experience and the reaction to it?
Yeah, no, that's true. You know, as I mentioned, when we have the spiritual common sense, we will be able to respond to our own experiences in a more mature manner. And that can lengthen the time interval between experience and our own reaction to it. So, suppose we know, we are aware of the fact, we keep in mind that mind has a tendency to be unnecessarily bothered or angry or anxious about certain things. This is a natural tendency of mind. When we are aware of this, when the mind becomes anxious, we'll be able to restrain it. See, there's no point in getting angry unnecessarily. When we remember this, and then we suddenly become aware, I think I'm becoming angry. You'll be able to restrain the mind from expressing that anger. Otherwise, if you don't have this tool of self-restraint, what happens? The thought comes and mind reacts to it. It is a split second. It becomes at just 1 second at the same time. The same instant we respond, we react to it. Once we become aware of the ways the mind may react to this experience, And when we also remember that that reaction may not be always appropriate, certain ways of reacting to our own experiences may not be appropriate, may be incorrect. When we remember that, then the interval between experience and our own response to that experience will be longer. And then we will not be angry or anxious. It's an important thing. When we are aware of a problem, the problem becomes reduced in its intensity or disappears. A very pointed question, very, very pointed question. See, we know there's no point in being unnecessarily worried or anxious, but we suddenly, I am becoming anxious. We also remember there's no point in being anxious. So anxiety comes down. And the length of time, the time interval becomes longer. If not, mind will respond immediately. And this happens in certain psychological problems, which we'll discuss later.